put all our emotions in, our passion, our what makes us us. And what the thing is, that is us, what connects us is one, friendship, but also the fact that we are a live band. We started out when we were 16 years old, playing guitars, drums, playing music that sounded like AC/DC, or sometimes sounded like Elvis Presley. Sometimes it was just like Nirvana. It could be anything, but we learned to play music together. We inspired each other, and each album has its own process. Apart from albums, we were lucky enough to work with different artists, different scale of music. Sometimes they did stuff for us, sometimes we did stuff for them. So our last couple of years have been really special, and every day we wake up and we're like, wow, this is really great. Like yesterday we were at the Ziggo Dome playing for Tomorrowland. A month before we didn't even realize that was going to be possible, so it's always unexpected. When we started, we learned what music was. We introduced different bands to each other, and that went from Elvis Presley. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of the Beatles and Elvis Presley. Then there was AC/DC in our life, Michael Jackson, Pink Floyd, Tribe Called Quest. So a very wide variety of kinds of music, but that is what makes us us. Our main goal was we grew up in a city in Belgium called Kortrijk. It's not really happening there. And so we wanted to find a way to escape. And the way to do that was to make music, although we were very aware that the music that we would make, nobody would know it. But we had the idea, if we can make music that people can dance to and they can relate to, then we have something, and then we might have this chance to go out and play. And we did that with the attitude of a DJ. Although we were a live band, we said to each other, we can do this like the DJ. We used to go to those parties with too many DJs and at all Alcam, and what they did with the crowd was so inspiring, and what we saw there, the connection with the DJ and the audience, that was what we wanted to do as a band. And how we did it? Well, step by step, and just by experimenting. Bring It On was our first album. We didn't have much instruments, but with the instruments that we had, we came up with a way that worked for us. It was the first time that we started out actually recording music with a BR8 from Boss.
The Boss, yeah.
So it's like an 8-track kind of.
Yeah, an 8-track digital recorder.
So that was pretty cool, but the options were limited. And then we made the step to work with Pro Tools, and since then we have always used Pro Tools, which is kind of also unique for an electronic band. Most acts work with different programs. We try to stick with Pro Tools as an audio recorder. And this is some kind of instruments that we used on the album. I don't know, Dave, if you have to.
Yeah, actually we didn't have a lot. You see just like a mono synth, a Taisco, which had a really huge sound and is still in our live sets. And then the Roland JX3P for strings and also for the sequencer. We just recorded little parts of the sequencer, actually out of sync, and then we just put it in Pro Tools and we start to cut and paste. Actually, the first album was like a collage for us.
Yeah, we had no idea what we were doing.
It was only Bert who understood the program, but we used it as well and gave some really nice results that we even couldn't make now.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, we didn't play around with MIDI and sequencers yet because we didn't know they existed, or
well, we were too lazy to get in.
It was too hard. So
menus.
we recorded stuff in Pro Tools and then used Pro Tools actually as a sampler and a sequencer to cut and paste stuff. Very basic, but because of the limitation, we were creative with the tools we had.
Yeah. we didn't have a lot of synths either, so we
No.
borrowed stuff from friends and from other artists, and yeah, with just a couple of synths, we had to create this record. So
Yeah, and what we really wanted to do was, we still had guitars in our setup, but we wanted them to sound like synths, and the opposite also. We wanted our synths to sound like a guitar, the rock, like the power chords, like Nirvana used, or so many bands. We tried to recreate that on a synthesizer. And what's very interesting, maybe if you know, like you see the rack, and that's actually a synthesizer with a guitar input or whatever. You can just put whatever that makes pitch into that, and then your guitar sounds like a real synth. For us, that was one of those.
it was a big part of the sound of
Yeah.
that record for us.
Right.
Give me a reason to cool you down, an explanation. I'm gonna lift you to upper ground, a great occasion. I try to hit it hard. Give me a reason. This ain't a heart attack. No moderation.
We were angry. So this was the sound of our first album, which kind of was a new sound that was around in what was going on in the dance music. Oh, also this. Then it was time for a second album.
Yep.
And with the second album, we had collected more synthesizers, more knowledge about what we were doing, there was only one rule, and the rule for that album was to exclude all guitars and go for a synth album. So we were thrown back to the late 70s, begin 80s, and that was the whole kind of atmosphere that we were in making that album. That album was called Synrise.
Yeah, it was the opposite with the first album. We exaggerated with synthesizers, and that was nice for some stuff, but if you see it now, it's also not necessary, but it gave us a nice sound, and it was an exploration. And you see like a Solina string ensemble that gives you like a vintage string sound, and we really used that. It's what Bowie would do, or what Air did. It's kind of cliche, but we loved the sound so much, we just did it. And the total of those synths gave us a unique sound.
Yeah, and the thing is, what is different to a lot of new bands is that we actually saved our money in order to buy those synthesizers, and now we have a nice collection of synths that we would never be able to buy today, because everybody started buying synthesizers. So back then it was pure analog synthesizers.
Yeah, and also the entry of reverb and delay. With the first album, we used to hate all kinds of effects, except distortion. But
We had one guy who was helping us in the studio, and he was trying to sneak in a little bit of reverb without us hearing it. So whenever we went out of the control room, he just sneaked it in. And whenever we heard it, we were angry. But then the second album changed everything for us, and so we loved effects, and yeah, we started to create like a bigger sound, and yeah, that was different, definitely.
And the collage part was less present. We were more working on production, on sound, and then we wrote the song around the production. And I want to share with you a tune from that album. was a track called Sunrise, and there's another track that's kind of special to us, as called Words. That was a song that was lying there for a couple of months, and it had again that vibey 80s spacey sound, and it worked really well as an instrumental. But here it comes, it needed that hook, and that's when we tried to put vocals on it. Really unexpected. We had, in fact, I had no idea what was about to come out of my mouth, but that was what happened.
Words are violently erupting, signs are flashing, bodies talk. Words are violently erupting, signs are flashing, bodies talk. Words are violently erupting, signs are flashing, bodies talk. Words are violently erupting. Violently erupting, signs are flashing, bodies talk. Words are violently erupting, signs are flashing, bodies talk.
Words. And then the journey continues. Oh. Then came 2 more albums, Control, 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 and What You Need. And those 2 albums were more and more about looking for a way to record our live energy, because we started in small clubs. Then we evolved to a little bit more and more bigger stages, and the energy that we could release and project on our audience was what we wanted to record on an album. And a good friend of us said, well, there's only one way to do that, and that's to record your music live. And for the first time we worked with a producer, Paul Stacey, and when we talked about this idea, he said, yeah, last band that I know did something similar was Rage Against the Machine. So we made a setup in a studio, and we recorded our music live, but with our wedges. So in normal circumstances, you would record track by track for the drums, then the bass, then the guitar, or whatever synthesizer. But we did it like as a band, one piece. And then if the recording would sound a little bit more worse, well,
that was it.
That was it. We just wanted to achieve that, that energy on the album. With What You Need, we continued to explore that energy on an album, and for that album we worked with Jason Faulkner, who is based in Los Angeles, and with him we Sunrise, the second album, was primarily about the production first, the sound first, and with What You Need, it was last. We wanted to focus on the songwriting, and then after that was done, we went in the studio and connected our synthesizers and drums. This is a small fragment of an inside view of us in the studio.
In the spring of 2015, we entered the final stage of recording our album What You Need. Moving to Los Angeles was an essential step in order to finalize the album. It's the place where we as a band felt as one. We were freed of all expectations, references. we could just be four friends having a good time. We needed to feel like it was us against the world. Apart from spending hours driving around California, we had the pleasure to work with Jason Faulkner. He has a great taste in music and he's a very talented instrumentalist. Jason played piano and guitars on tracks like Fall, Fall, Fall or So Long, Holding Hands. He helped us to give the album an organic sound. As we needed the air and the atmosphere.
Blah, 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 blah.
Nice voiceover, Mikael.
Yeah, it was primarily boys on the beach, but the studio that we were in was pretty cozy. It was just a small room packed with synthesizers, and as we say in the little film, it was good to be just away from everything, and again try to find the sound that would connect us, and that has been a search ever since. And here we are today. Today we are really lucky and grateful that we have a new room, a new studio, where we have place to put all our synthesizers and continue to experiment. And yeah, we just entered a new phase in our life, and we started to rethink the way that we perform on stage, and we named it Goose Non-Stop. And with a little blink to Kraftwerk, we looked at our live set, we looked at the reaction of the audience, and we were still pretty much doing it as a classic rock band. And next step was to rethink our arrangements and play in one movement a whole set. And we did this by not going bigger, but going smaller. And that's where we got to know the people of Roland, and they helped us in the process, because we wanted to go away from the instruments that we've been using for over all the albums. We wanted something else. So if you're handed a tool and you have never worked with it, then it becomes really interesting. You turn it up, you don't know what's going on, but it sounds, interesting. And from that idea, we came up with a new set. As we were jamming, we wrote new arrangements, we wrote new music, and more, this is the way that we are working in the studio. It's a combination of all previous steps. We have the Pro Tools, that we now know how it works. We use it just as a recorder. We have more knowledge about MIDI and programming, so we make a combination between the soft synths and the real synths, and we use that as a really handy tool. And then we make small live setups, like this ones, for instance, and we just jam and we see what happens. And the result of this process is translated into this new live show, where I have to admit, again, we brought back the drums, but this was the important process in order to get there. Without throwing everything away, we couldn't do what we are doing today. So it was a wild guess, but it was worth it. And I'm gonna show you a little clip of how the process went. Unfortunately it's in Dutch. Is that a problem? You spent a week in Holland, so that shouldn't be a problem. But it's not that.
Goose Non-Stop, dat komt eigenlijk uit de wens
om eigenlijk een DJ-set te kunnen benaderen.
Van zodra dat we een beetje beginnen te voelen van we hebben dit al een keer gedaan, dan proberen we alles een keer om te draaien.
Alles weg tabula rasa en een tafel gezet in een kamer en allemaal sinds een drumcomputers erop gezet en begin jam.
Daar hebben we heel hard gezocht om een soort nieuwe sound te creëren, maar die toch het Goose DNA heeft. En daar zijn we heel hard mee bezig geweest de laatste maanden.
Het voelt als een nieuw begin, nieuwe energie.
Het is meer gericht op danssfeer, omdat we daar op dit moment ook nood aan hebben. We hebben echt zin om uit te gaan, we hebben zin om te feesten.
Maar het zou eigenlijk de bedoeling moeten zijn dat je bijna niet meer hoeft te kijken naar een artiest. Allee, dat is toch het romantische idee dat wij hebben, dat mensen gefocust zijn op de muziek en volledig in hun eigen wereld kunnen gewoon losgaan en trancen.
Als we ons vorige optredens naar de climax bouwden, en dan de climax was dan het einde van de show, beginnen we nu vanaf die climax. We gaan we terug naar boven. Ik ben met zoveel ongeduld aan het wachten.
Yeah, so basically we're saying how great we are. And no, so it's what we are telling is that we were looking for the approach of bringing music that you would hear in a club but on a live stage, and how we were looking to do that again with the four of us playing live instruments. And yeah, it was a difficult process, but eventually we ended where we had to end. Because once you throw everything away, there's nothing left. And then you start to rebuild, but you have no proof that what you have built is actually the shit. So you have to try, and yeah, and there's some errors and some successes, and we took time to find a way that worked for us. Yeah, and today we continue to make music. We continue to find the sound that excites us and hopefully excites more people than the four of us. And yeah, we could say we are really definitely doing something new for ourselves, combining all the things that we learned over the past. And we're not afraid to throw things away. And we're not afraid to experiment with new stuff. And if there's time, I'm gonna show you a little clip of what the new sound is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I saw you leaning against that pole. I like girls who act like boys. I'll be leaving you my number on the back of the phone cell. Nobody uses that again. What you saying? I can hear. What you saying? Hear 'em loud.
And this brings us to how we will continue this little moment together. The way that this song was constructed was almost identical to this kind of setup. One synth, a drum computer, and yeah.
Yeah, really like an island of machines.
Yeah, and then look for excitement. And then when there's excitement, there's fun. And then you can play around in the studio, and that's exactly what we love to do. So thank you for your time, for listening to the words, and now it's time for the music.
Well, I'm gonna try something. So this is actually you probably all know modular synths. And we used to use all those simple synths, and for us this was unexpected or territory we didn't know. But let me show you how we just build a sound mostly, or how it's creative for us. I already pre-patched because you would sit here for an hour probably just hearing buzz. But let's see. And the way I try to do it is how we normally do it as a band. Like we start with just a simple wave, a bass wave. I have a sequencer which will run the modular synth. So it switches CV gate to old school MIDI. And let's see if it's playing. These are the drums. So I'm going to start off just with one wave and slow it down a bit. So it's really simple. And then I'm gonna put another oscillator, which make it more detuned and actually a bigger sound. I'm already going through the filter, so yeah, I did a bypass. So we're hearing two oscillators now. But for us, it sounds still a bit boring, so we really liked, or really like, pulse width modulation. That's you modulate your oscillator with whatever. And I use an LFO, low frequency modulator. And normally that should give something more, let's see. Speed it up. That's more like it. So this could be just the bass, and then there's the mid section. What would be guitar in our like years ago? What we did. So I have some extra oscillators on another channel. Let me check it. Yeah, doesn't sound like a guitar, but more like an acid thing. But imagine, use your imagination. So let me go quiet. So there's another envelope on this one. That's nice. So I'm gonna add the bass. And maybe add, just for fun, an extra oscillator who plays just one note. There it is. So yeah. What I could do is make it even more dirtier and just put some cross modulation. I'm gonna use the one note to cross the other oscillators. Let me see. Like that, the sound. So yeah, why not do a jam, Bert? Come on. So.
So, yes, thank you very
I
much.
don't know. It's just
I don't know if you guys have questions for us. We will be happy to answer some of your questions. Gonna give you a mic.
Thank you so much. First off, your performance at Ziggo Dome was amazing. It was really great. My main question is, do you perform every single thing live, or is some of it recorded ahead of time and you have to have someone helping you because some of it's made on the computer and then you have to mix it together live with your live performances?
We actually play everything live. We do use MIDI to get some sequences, and in fact we have some of our analog synths are modded in a way that we can change them from playing the keyboard to receiving the MIDI. But aside from that, everything is played live. There's no audio or whatever playing along.
Even the drums are live, except the kick and snare, also live, but they're triggered, so we can have like a more of a dance kick and a dance snare. But the swing is a human, so it has a different feel to it. And the MPC is like this main sequencer who runs MIDI to everything. I have Roland triggers, converting triggers into MIDI, but it's all the sounds are live.
That's amazing. Does that pose problem for you, like traveling with all the gear and trying to set it up? And how long does it take to set up and everything? Just curious.
Well, it does get a little bit complicated sometimes because we are not as flexible as a DJ. And that is sometimes hard because sometimes we can't do certain gigs because we have too much gear, although we try to keep it as limited as possible. We need our stuff because it's part of our sounds.
Yep. And we can go out, and when we fly, we have 7 flight cases. We just take the synths that we need because you cannot replace them if you play in Italy or whatever. There's not really a Tesco waiting for you there, so we need to bring them. But then, as we are used to play together as a rock band, we have played in circumstances. I remember one in London where the stage was so narrow, we had to play behind each other. But
it's true.
But we make it work because we have this this background of being a rock and roll band.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi.
I really love the drum processing, especially in the first album. I guess what I wanted to ask you is, do you layer like live drums with drum machines, or are those only drum machines? Or
Especially the first album was mainly like the sequential drum tracks who made kicks and snares, and then we edit them in Pro Tools. But the key to make it sound more alive was playing real hi-hats over it. So when you have like an electronic kick, an electronic snare, and then you play a live hi-hat, everything changes if you compare it to an electronic hi-hat. But then the other albums, we started to really combine stuff. Sometimes we used like the playing everything live and then trigger the kick, so you have an extra like sound. But yeah, every album is different. Sometimes we play only live drums, but we process them in a way that it sounds more electronic, or the other way around, electronic sounds that give them some organic feel to it. So yeah.
Thanks.
There's somebody in the back.
Well, I've not really a question, but I want to thank you for making the music, because Sunrise, the single Sunrise, for me is like the theme of the rest of my life from that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the emotional vibe with the energy. I really love it. So I just want to thank you guys.
Oh wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's nice.
Well, that's super nice for us to hear that, because we're not used of people tell us that we do something nice. They mostly ask for drinks.
Same here. Thank you for sharing your music and your knowledge. We were there at your first gig at Door 10 years ago, maybe.
Oh.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
How long it was. It was your first album. I was also wondering, as a drummer myself, are you using click tracks or to sync everything up with the MPC or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the MPC is the master clock.
Yeah.
And I'm a slave.
Yeah. Slave to the
To the rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried it the other way. We tried it like with triggering the kick as a tap for the BPM, but it had too much. It wasn't stable enough.
Yeah.
But I forgot the question.
Yeah, you're using click track to hear.
Yeah, so
everything,
I
right?
have a click
Yeah.
track because I sent sequences to the synths. So I follow the click to make sure the sequences are the same groove as I am, and that's it. I just play drums on the click, and also the sequences are they're not made in songs. They're like loops, and when we go from chorus to refrain or riff, I switch the loop with my third hand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
and Bert is the only one who's hearing click, so we're quite lucky to just be free of that and play music and just we follow him.
Yeah, but I've been playing on a click a while now, and sometimes at the end of a track, I don't even remember listening to a click because you get used to it so much you just become the click.
Yeah. And you're still using the MPC, the old one, or a new
That's the
version?
MPC 1000.
Okay, yeah,
But
still works.
Any machine can do it, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Here's one. Maybe then we have to leave the stage to the next guest.
Hello, I'm Ronnie from San Francisco. There's 4 of you guys. When you guys are creating new music, how do you guys come together and get into the workflow? And like, do you guys create while you're traveling, or when you're away from each other? And how do you know?
Since we moved to our new studio, we are lucky that we have 3 setups. So we have 3 studios where we can work in, and over the years we have been doing other projects as well, like making music for film or television series. So somebody would be in a studio while the others are making music in another room, and that's how we work. It's very organic. There's actually there's no rule. It can be whatever it is. In the past, we couldn't combine going out and making music. It was, we're off, we're doing shows. But now more and more we use different programs, like Bert is all the time he's on his laptop working on IDs from Ableton. So that's also something new that was introduced in Goose throughout the years. So more and more, yes, we are combining touring, making music, and Thank you very much for your time and listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you.